我在季后赛的队伍里面，中单好像排名的话，我感觉纸面实力看起来的话，我好像是比较弱的一个，但是可以从颜值方面考虑一下去战胜他们。
And after that, SinoDragons have clawed their way through EDG for the second time off the back of their handsomest mid laner in the LPL by his own admission. I like it.
Weird flex, you know?
Weird flex, but okay.
We'll take it.
You can say whatever you want after that game number 2.
What official data is he looking? Like, literally, there's Snake. I'll even throw in LGD a little bit. I know Yuki is strong, but I'll take Twila. I'll put that out there. But I can understand the point. I can understand the point. Confidence somewhere, right?
It's got to go for the superlatives to prove the point better.
But, like, immediately going into this game, because this was game 2, obviously, the fact that we were able to see, I want to just really iron in the fact of mid lane and top lane, and how it's been really helping SinoDragon. This is the second game where they're able to have consistent shove in both mid and top, and it's EDG that are drafting both, not losing lanes in particular. Like, they can outscale at like level 6 or certain points, or like be able to take over the matchup, but in terms of just pre-6, they get pushed inconsistently, they have a poor jungle matchup as well, and then they're getting bullied around that. This is not only just Haro, but in game 2, it was clear level 2 levels behind early on, and so it was actually just SinoDragons running roughshot in game 2 as well as game 1. So it's really, we really need EDG to be able to come into this game and drafting for at least mid lane priority. They need to have mid lane push, so Xiaopeng has to play a lot more respectful.
Well, the mid lane priority wasn't even their biggest problem. I mean, the biggest thing for them
was pretty big.
Yeah, I mean, it was huge. It wasn't their only problem,
Okay.
I'll say, because going into that one, I mean, we got to look at that MVP performance from Mark, because every single time they found someone anywhere on the map, Mark was just like, I got him, I'm going for it, flash W, let's go.
100% of the time. And my favorite one was legitimately the pick on the clear love that net in towards Baron. I think what we've been seeing is consistent vision control from both Mark and Xiaopeng, and even though we sing the praises of the jungle quite consistently, it's really a team effort. And we're seeing great, oh, this is literally the play that I was talking about. So take a look at this. So first of all, what are you doing clear love alone? He's like, I'm gonna break away from the pack. Meiko running away from me. You see top lane going top side to be able to pick up the wave. I got this ward. So like, really questionable call from Clear Love right there. But still, good punishes consistently from SinoDragons. They're being able to net themselves Baron buff. And if you're going to try and find yourself into the Baron pit, of course you're going to pay the iron price. So we're not going to be able to see the Ignite tick take the kill, but that's what happened there. And it's really just a series where SinoDragons are punishing on solo lanes alone. And even though, for whatever reason, Twila is saying that he is statistically the weakest, which isn't fair. I would like to ask where your sources are, sir. But on the map, he's coming out strong into being able to support these plays from Mark and Xiaopeng.
Honestly, it shows the flexibility of Mark as well, because he has an amazing Galio, and that's what I've been looking towards him to play, but showing that he can play. Granted, Rakan also has an engaged heavy W that's able to get a lot of plays done, but showing that he has that flexibility in SinoDragons as a whole, because yes, they've played one composition very consistently, but they've been able to switch what champions they use.
And it's never as simple as just banning out the Rakan, because literally that was the same case with Galio. They banned out the Galio, they found another option. You do the same there, that's the Alistar that you can pick up. I think what's separate from this game from the usual EDG games is this one is where Meiko and iBoy had 0 say. They were in a losing matchup, which never happens. They always prep themselves up for having either a strong position in the laning fate skirmish. They either pick something that's good for early skirmishes, they can find a solo kill to upset the wave pushing into them, or usually just having a shoving wave. So you can already see it. Haro's coming back into game 3. It's disaster mode. Shuffle the jungles around and see what ends up sticking. I don't think that's going to be considerable enough to work, but it just comes down to the intangibles. What did they tell to Haro within the game? Coach Hart in the back, being able to instill not only confidence, but information to say this is what Xiaopeng is doing. Because if I saw that last game, it was all pretty clear to me that Xiaopeng was on your buff when adjacent lanes were getting shoved in. So the information was already there for EDG. It was more so the disrespect of looking to get that buff and not saying, okay, well, we'll secede the buff. We'll either just say we'll give you the buff early on, we'll take a 3 buff start that you'll have, or playing it slow enough so you can allow time for either Scout to come in, he was half HP so he wasn't going to be able to commit to a fight, or say I know that Ray will come in full HP. Maybe we'll play this one out long enough to push you off the buff overall. There are many ways to play it out, but the thing that I will say that is the hardest for EDG is saying that there's going to be a change in information, because everything is out there in the open. They're just losing.
The jungle substitution is far from a silver bullet for them at this point, because, I mean, that wasn't the biggest issue. It was just everywhere they're collapsing. Their draft is having problems every game. GALA and Mark are just popping off. 100%
kill participation is what you're looking at there from the dual lane. And the skirmishes weren't even happening around the bottom side of the map. They were rotating to help out in the top side of the map. So what you're seeing from SinoDragons is that they were always there to commit to these fights. So whenever EDG say, oh, we'll find a pick, we'll find our way back into the game, that's actually false, because SinoDragons are always there ready for that. You just spilled on your pants, my friend. Get this man a tissue paper immediately. He has a lot of problems as is within the game. A sippy cup is something he doesn't want to have to think about. He's going to put that out there because everyone saw it. That's something you can't hide, my friend.
Try as he might, we saw iBoy spill his coffee. And now
there's water, thankfully.
Oh, water,
if it was coffee, we'd have
coffee.
A larger problem where he would definitely have burned himself. So I'm not saying he needs aid. I'm just saying he needs a wiping.
That was, you could have phrased that one a little bit different,
he needs
but
a
okay.
wiping.
All right, iBoy needs a wiping, and I think honestly EDG, the slate on which they write their strategies, might also need a little bit of a wiping, because like you said, the information change isn't going to be that huge silver bullet for them. I mean, coming into this, they need to shut down Xiaopeng. They need to not let Changhong take over the game. You can't let SDG have free reign over it, and they've changed their bans. Look at that, they're focusing on Mark now. But Xiaopeng has been the carry every single game, and you give him over Rek'Sai, which he admits is his best and favorite champion.
I will tell you what the problem is. The solo lanes for SinoDragons are being drafted pushing lanes consistently. Xiaopeng has the option to completely just mess up Haro's pathing, or at the very least have eyes on him at all times. And so the Galio and the Rakan, once again, I said if you take that off the map, along with the Lissandra, sure, there's an engage that's gone. I'll say Twila will move on to a champion that doesn't have that hard engage, but Mark will go back to the champion that has made his name like throughout the entire regular season. That's the Alistar. So unless if EDG ends up picking it right now, I think the idea of the draft isn't very well thought out.
We were talking about the Lee Sin in the game one.
That's
as
true.
A good takeaway there for Haro. So they got that one, but you gave over the Rek'Sai.
I mean, I like the Rek'Sai in the matchup anyway. So, but remember the whole playmaking factor that Haro has now. I like that. We'll have to see who he's being paired up with. So I want to be able to see what Scout and Ray pick up for themselves. This is red side, by the way. Even though SinoDragons has had side selection and have been going to the blue side consistently, this is not a situation where EDG are uncomfortable being on red side by any means. They prefer that so they can have that on Scout and Ray. So I want to see what the changes are here. I think EDG recognized they need more time. Tack on a 10-second, a timeout. Someone got teed up.
At this point, EDG really need to find that pushing mid laner. What would you like to see as the blind pick option for them for Scout?
Well, I can't say Lissandra now since that got banned, which I'm a little bit sad about. I will say that LeBlanc, even though she got hit with a slight nerf, I would like to be able to see the LeBlanc, the Morgana, a lot of this champions that you focus on a little bit more in the mid lane. I think the Aurelia is fine as long as we get our hands on, just saying, I forgot the Lee Sin was picked up there, so you can't have the Sejuani to lock in these skirmishes through the lane. So the Yasuo is a possibility. So I'm just saying there are a lot of champions, and a lot of them just comes down to what the counter matchup is. So as a short answer, I just don't want to blind pick mid. I don't blind pick mid. I want you to counter pick the mid lane. Make the best use out of the red side of your map.
They still have options for what else they could pick. The only thing that's been locked in is the jungle so far, Lee Sin for Haro, which we expected, let him play his aggressive style, let him go in. Now that he has a little bit more information from Coach Hart as well, maybe this is something, maybe this is the secret X factor together. Not just subbing in the jungler, but giving him something he's really comfortable on.
And this is where not only the team, but the fans, everyone out there is getting overwhelmed with the problems that are currently happening in this series. Where you're saying that, once again, a lot of people came into this series saying ban the Sion, or you're talking about, hey, Xiaopeng, maybe take away the Lee Sin. There are actually just so many ideas that are flooding through that EDG are getting a little bit overwhelmed with so many issues that they're having within the game. And in draft, I would say they should have confidence in the draft as long as they're able to get good counter picks in the mid lane and top lane. I say this pretty frequently, but it seems like that's just not happening here. And being able to support Haro with a strong carry. Now, I was thinking Olaf when I say like a strong carry jungler, that you could now focus on your clear. Lee Sin makes it harder, especially since he knows he's going up against Rek'Sai. If we're just talking about skirmishes, Rek'Sai does it against you. So it's actually just a mistake that the Lee Sin came out. Hello?
Okay. So that Olaf thing you said, Raz.
I guess that's beneficial. All right, there we go. Because I was kind of weird when the Lee Sin got locked in, because Rek'Sai does well into the Lee Sin. When you try and take the kick into the Rek'Sai, Rek'Sai just knocks you up, negate the damage, and he's able to just double down on you. So Olaf is a classic counter pick into the Rek'Sai, especially since the only CC that he has going up against you, Ragnarok, comes out and he's able to just run right through you. So faster clear, better skirmishes. Olaf is the better pick here.
They, of course, secure that one.
And the LeBlanc, look, it's all
And the
happening.
LeBlanc, yeah. You got it, Raz.
What's
100%. 100%.
There we go.
We'll get our predictions here, if nowhere else.
I lose every other prediction except this one, but no
Except
one
the draft.
remembers this one.
The Game 3 draft. No one's going to remember it, but they're going to be like, ah.
No, this is where, it's God-twisted humor where they lose with the exact draft that I want to see EDG end up picking. So I'm just holding everything out until we see the end of the game.
I know several EDG fans just had a heart attack as you said that, because they're like,
saying.
oh, that would happen to EDG. That's crazy. But SinoDragon secure their bottom lane. Oh, and they also take away the natural counter pick in the Morgana.
Yeah, dealing with the bottom side of the map. So if we're just talking about what EDG is comfortable with, they have a great skirmish mid laner, a good clear in the jungle as well. They can play through the bottom lane because we already saw how Morgana has been playing out recently. A great picking towards the Braum, and also it's just a good go signal. If you're able to get the Dark Binding, so hard to tell with the hitbox that it has now, a little harder to tell with the animation that she ends up throwing out there. And then on top of that, has great push potential. Every cannon wave that comes in is able to reset the timing a little bit by bit, off the Dark Shadow, I suppose it's called. I always forget.
Tormented Shadow, I think.
Tormented Shadow, yes. They changed it for Tormented Soil because lore.
I mean, apparently gardens aren't very evil, as it turns out, Raz.
True. But EDG having exactly what they needed, and I just want to be able to see what iBoy picks out for himself. So a lot of the AD carries ban coming through from SinoDragons are needed.
These bans from EDG are really interesting to me because they're banning out a lot of supportive picks that we've seen flex before, the Lulu and the Karma specifically.
This is all them trying to take a chip on towards Twila, because Twila has such a large champion pool and they're all supportive picks. So Karma, Lulu, I even go towards the Zillion as well. I think these are great options that really helps Xiaopeng when he's trying to pick up early skirmishes, and they're great picks versus LeBlanc. If we're just talking about like natural counter picks into towards the LeBlanc, both of those do well into it historically. So it makes a lot of sense that EDG are trying to protect the mid lane pick.
Now EDG going to secure an 80 carry pick for themselves, make sure it can't be stolen away. They've decided on the Sivir here in this round. We'll see what SDG answer with. They still need a top laner and a mid laner. Both solo lanes available.
It's actually hilarious that EDG come into this game and they're saying we're losing Shove. Let's prioritize Shove in every lane possible. I say possible because they won't have that response in the mid lane. Twila will know what matchup he's going into, and so the one matchup that I want mid lane priority, I want that priority. It's not going to happen because Twila should pick the better matchup here. We're starting to see it with SinoDragon's last picks.
Jay's going to be locked in, and we're going to have to find out what happens to the last one. Now, Changhong and Twila both have pretty deep champion pools that have been demonstrated here. Twila's played a lot of styles, as has Changhong.
Locked it in.
The Swain and the Jace are going to be the solo lane lock-ins for SinoDragons.
You expect the Jace to be top lane. There's not a lot of picks that can actually deal with it. Jay should win just about every matchup that he has there. So it's going to be on Ray to decide what his counter pick is going to be. Please lock it in.
Okay. We saw it yesterday.
I'm thinking Kennen, but I know that there is the buff to Gnar that is honestly just insignificant, but it gets locked in.
There we go. You say it's insignificant, Raz, but it's significant enough to get locked in 2 days in a row. So maybe it was just the buff reminding players, oh yeah, Gnar exists. Let's pick that. So Ray is going to be taking that into the top side against Changhong, who appears to be taking the Swain.
Just so people know what the buff is, essentially Wallop's cooldown got normalized. So it used to be, 15 seconds, and if you level up W, it gets towards 7 seconds. Now it's just 7 seconds at all ranks. So that means you can max up your Q, which people have been doing regardless, or you can just say that actually when I go into Mega Gnar form, I will have my Wallop at all times, but usually people don't go too heavy into skirmishing in the top side of the map, or what they end up doing is they don't go too heavily into like picking attack speeds. They don't find themselves getting back into Mega Gnar that fast. that they're like, oh, the cooldown on Meganar's wallop is actually beneficial. That's why I say it's not that meaningful. But we're going to have to see. I mean, EDG and Gnar, pick a better duo. It kind of reminds me of Coral 1, probably out there watching somewhere. Yes, they've done it.
To be fair, though, the wallet buff potentially in the same cooldown space of 1 before, you can now get 2.
That's
so
fair.
It's nice.
That's
It's
not the
a
reason
little
why I
something,
picked
something.
it.
No, but it's a little something, something, Raz. A little je ne sais quoi, as you will, to put on top of it. But now, SinoDragon's picking up the Swain. They've coming in with a little bit of a surprise pick of their own again here into EDG's composition.
And I think what we're seeing here from SinoDragon's comp is the ability to start fights wherever Xiaopeng goes. You go towards the mid lane, and that's where Twila's Jace has been actually having so much success here. So Scout, I don't think he's going to have a chance to really take an advantage onto Twila. Xiaopeng should always have the counter gank, should always be looking topside too. There are actually just so many places Xiaopeng can actually pick his fights. I would say not the bottom lane, with the multiple magic shields that are there for him.
But this time, it's all on Xiaopeng's shoulders. He's done it twice before. Can he make it the 3-0 against Edward Gaming? We're going to find out in a few minutes. EDG versus SinoDragon Gaming's Game 3 begins now. Well, they got all 3 cheers off.
That's true.
That's new.
True.
That's new.
You're in that LGD chant at times. It's funny, remember we're in Hangzhou, which is the LGD venue. It will be the venue for the playoffs up until the finals. So it's going to be nice to be able to see all the fans that would come into the venue to be able to see LGD and who they go up against. But now they get to see the best teams go up against each other in playoffs time.
Are you saying that LGD is not a best team, Raz?
Not yet, they're not.
That's right. I like that. Not yet.
Not yet.
SinoDragons, this is an odd level 1 from them, playing very defensively. They will spot the ward, but the ward will spot the ward as well. It's wardception here, the bottom side of the map, but it will secure Xiaopeng a free red buff start.
There we go. Coming into lane just fine. Now that just means that EDG should be able to get to level 2 a little bit faster. As long as they can push Braum off the wave, who is going to be trying to get towards his target's proc, it's going to be beneficial. Take a look at this, though. Ouch.
That's a pretty decent amount of poke there from Twila. You saw the Jace last game. He played absolutely amazingly. But this level 1, not going quite as in favor.
The consistent damage is what you're looking for now. Oh, losing out on that Dark Binding. They're still going to get to the level 2 a little faster. It's nice that Xiaopeng is actually securing their bottom lane vision, so we don't see any, Olaf in the area. And when they do, of course, has a good idea that it's even happening because they put the ward on the ramp as well. So Xiaopeng getting great vision on the bottom side of the map while pathing top side.
Counterpoint to that, though, at least this time EDG are going to keep eyes on Xiaopeng as well. So they know that he's got to be headed up towards the top side of the map, but he might be able to secure the scuttle as well up there, giving him the double scuttle, double buff.
Yeah.
So he'll be pretty happy with that even if he's seen.
Experience is just going to be great for him. While we were looking towards Haro, now the strength of Olaf into the matchup is that he's going to try and match him on Raptors, on Scuttle Crab. He should be able to push him out, but he doesn't have mid lane push, which has been the issue for EDG all series long. Xiaopeng has him here, but this is actually just going to be the funnest merry-go-round. Oh, okay, wait.
Ray can land the E. He'll get away. There's the knockout, followed by the W. Not going to be enough there, but Ray will make it out of there. Half health. And Xiaopeng as well is going to have to lose a little bit of time. Haro coming down into the bottom side. Please don't go for a dive. Just go for the Krugs.
Of course he's just going to go for Krugs, but it's a good timing, which is important. Good timing because he's picking it up while the wave is crashing in. I think they should be able to hold this one back. They don't have the extra combat summoner to protect them. This is huge, actually. Now, if I'm thinking about how Olaf plays this one out, he doesn't have enough time with the wave just about to die, but if enough damage goes on towards GALA, certainly this turns into a dive.
Now Haro sitting happy at the level 4. He does have the experience advantage versus Xiaopeng. Not necessarily common to see.
It's just because, remember, Xiaopeng on blue side, he could have gone for the enemy Krugs top side, but he went for the gank instead and got ran around, so there wasn't a possibility for him to loop back in and get the Krugs. So very rarely you see red side going for a Krugs take, and it comes out beneficially. It comes out with the red side being able to get more experience, but that's what happened here. So able to recoup some of the experience lost in the double scuttle.
Early game a little bit slower here coming out from SinoDragons, but Changhong able to get a massive trade there in the top lane, chunking Ray down to half. Does have the fleet footwork, however, so has a decent amount of sustain alongside that Doran shield.
A lot of people were wondering if there would be a change in rune pickups with Conquerors coming back in line, getting buffed up, but it's actually so hard for you to keep your stacks if you have Conquerors on the Gnar because primarily he's a ranged champion. So just doesn't make a lot of sense. So a lot of people are just going towards either Airy or, you know, as you already can see, go towards fleet footwork. Some people go lethal tempo, but that's just kind of weird. I'm not a fan of that. I like the fleet footwork so you can keep up in lane.
Yeah, lethal tempo, definitely potentially questionable, as is this invade here by Xiaopeng. He will spot away Haro and won't get caught by the undertow. Scryer's Bloom as well going over, but didn't actually get vision of Xiaopeng. He has the Tremor Sense, so he can follow Haro here. Gets the knockup, going to follow it up with a few Qs. Queen's Wrath doing a lot. Conqueror proc for both of these junglers now at this point. Xiaopeng will narrowly avoid it. Gets the knockup onto Scout. Scout still chasing down. Gets the first blood with the Ignite. But now SinoDragons, it's a 3 versus 4, but AoE damage is on the side of SinoDragons. Can they get it at this point? The flash in from Twila. They're trying for it. If they get the damage, that'll determine the fight. There's one kill. GALA still chasing down for it. The auto on the Scout. He'll get it. But one more, iBoy still alive, chases in with the flash, and it looks like the trade across the map in favor of EDG.
That was the Gnar teleporting in, and on top of that split damage, EDG recognizing that people who are very low in HP, scouting primarily, just actually ends up going straight back into the back line. And so EDG were looping members in that had the most amount of HP, so it was just great target pressure there. Because this all started with Xiaopeng going in, recognizing that he had the shoving lanes on bottom side of the map, so he was going to be able to get the members there, but they weren't purely on time. LeBlanc getting the pick on towards Xiaopeng was actually so massive. The flash failed from Rek'Sai trying to get over the wall, you have to assume didn't hit anything, and so they were trying to play front to back with Braum, just basic stuff. But then you could start to see Black Shield going on top of Haro, and then Scout hiding into the bush, kept them alive for so much longer than they should have been.
That said, though, GALA does pick up a double kill off the back of this, while iBoy only gets one, so he will be a little bit ahead in terms of gold at this point.
It's just across the board. You're right about GALA, but we're just talking about the mid lane, the jungle. Certainly, Haro is much happier with how that ended up going. Trying to trade sides early on, that's not how Olaf wants to be able to play it out. But now that he's going to be able to get to 6, he's already hit it. Close to being able to pick up. I wonder if he goes towards Warriors or just a regular, you know, health enchant. Either way, he can just start rushing Xiaopeng in any of these fights.
Xiaopeng himself going to have a little bit of a struggle, going to pick up the plants and narrowly avoid the control ward as well. A little bit of damage going down onto Twila will chunk him down to half from Scout. This is going so much better here for EDG in this early game.
Thankfully, Twila still had corrupting potions to jug. Means that SinoDragon should be able to get the dragon pretty safely. Still trading sides, but take a look at this.
Collapse coming in here from EDG. This should be an easy secure here for Xiaopeng. Smite will take it. A little bit of poke damage back onto Meiko will punish him a bit. Not quite enough, but the Mountain Drake goes over to SinoDragons at 7 minutes into the game.
You're starting to see that it's getting awkward for Braum. Just take a look at what he has to deal with in these compositions. I've already mentioned the Black Shield is to, you know, one. iBoy also having his own spell shield is another. Olaf now fed. How do you actually deal with that? He has a Warriors enchant now. He's just going to go straight for you. So what is he actually going to block? This is going to be a tough time for him. Speaking of tough times, ooh, Twila was able to dodge it out.
Fancy feet on him, going to do very well. Now Xiaopeng will spot out Haro as well. Undertow not going to land, so he'll be able to clear out the control ward. Scuttle, maybe the next point of contention between these two junglers. And Raz, the early game here for Xiaopeng has not been as strong as the previous games.
It's because they all land on the fight. This is what happens when you're confident about the plays that you're going for. You better well execute. The execution in the bottom lane play didn't work out, and now this is all the resources starting to pull in towards Haro. For the first time in the series, the jungler is coming out ahead from EDG's side.
SinoDragons, though, not too far behind as a unit, only 1k gold deficit, and they have that Mountain Drake. They know that this blue buff is being contended for here, but SinoDragon's going to have a little bit of trouble here in the solo lanes. Changhong having to fight against Ray, forces out the Gnar ultimate. And now Xiaopeng will sadly watch over the wall as his blue buff is taken away by Scout.
That was such a meaningful skirmish there from Ray, because that all-in pushing Changhong back actually wasted a lot of soul fragments that he was building up during the laning phase. So not only did he waste time, so Haro was able to get the steal on towards the blue buff, but now Changhong's not going to have the damage there unless if he's able to build that soul fragment back up.
How much has this early game affected the goal tempo here of SinoDragon's composition as a whole? Because we were talking in the Champion Select about how it's all centered around where Xiaopeng can gank. Every play happens around him. At this point, Xiaopeng 0-1 and 0 hasn't really gotten a whole lot done.
Yeah, I mean, flatly put, if Twila and Xiaopeng are down, they better go for a creative play, and that's what Changhong's trying to do.
Changhong here with the teleport, the ultimate from iBoy, but will it have enough move speed? Meiko going to get focused down here.
Oh!
Free kill, and the pack on to iBoy. Here comes Changhong demonstrating another top lane pick, not quite able to take out iBoy, but threatens him heavily.
Layers down the E there to be able to pick on iBoy, who is sticking around for a little bit too long. Didn't have flash there. Close to be able to pick it up, but didn't need it anyways because he was able to still get out. So nice to be able to find that pick in the back line, get the kill on a Meiko, and starts changing things up for SinoDragons.
Changhong, you need to be careful, buddy. He's going to be able to take the turret platings, luckily. And now Scout getting engaged on in the mid lane here. And Xiaopeng's there, doesn't need to do anything as Twila picks it up with a shock blast.
They're coming right back. Not only the pick in the mid lane, but they're able to start going straight forward. Oh, actually, how many turret? They're going to be getting a few turret platings here. Oh, they could have gone for a second one, I think, if they're waiting for the next wave that's coming up. But they're not going to be too greedy.
Just going to play a little bit more conservatively now that the early game hasn't gone as well as they expected. But they have evened up the gold lead at this point. Still have the one dragon. They're taking turret platings here in the bottom as well.
Gnar is in a really difficult position. Remember, Sivir picked up an extra wave in the bottom lane when GALA had already moved up top. That means the extra push happened. It took some time for iBoy and Meiko to make the trek here, which means that now this vision is, the push is turning into vision now around the topside river. And for whatever reason, Gnar was still sticking around that top lane. So a lot of missed experience on the side of EDG.
Now he's rotated down to the bottom lane at the very least, but Changhong has finally picked up that Rod of Ages, so he's going to get stacking towards that mid game. It's going to be a scary one here from SinoDragons with both the Jace and the Swain. It's a lot of mid-game power spiking here.
It's just trying to find that one pick. If Swain can get it, Rek'Sai off his flash, knock up. There are a lot of options there, but remember they need to do that when they have isolated where Meiko is. They can't try and get the pick on towards iBoy. They need to actually look for either Olaf or Gnar or maybe even LeBlanc like they did in the last play. EDG have a lot of mechanisms to be able to stop that. So looks like they're already out on the map trying to force SinoDragon's hand.
Looks like they've been able to do that, forcing out the teleport from GALA and answer teleport coming in from
Got
Ray
him.
at this point. But that's the pick onto Haro on the side. Twila trying to stall as well as he can. Ray comes in, doesn't have the Meganar for a little bit, and Changhong, look at the zone coming out from this Swain. And now Mark solo supportal combat. They're going to take down Ray. Another one on the back end, and Changhong this time going all in on the fight was the right decision as they take down 3 and will secure the Rift Herald.
The flank play from Mark. Legitimately just running around to be able to get the pick on towards the top laner. That was insanely played out because that netted him an extra kill and certainly would have been able to get now the Rift Herald. If he wasn't in that position, EDG can stall out, can force SinoDragons to off the Rift Herald, have to go towards the adjacent lanes, but because he found that flank spot, so much easier now. Now take a look at this because you got to see top laner, Changhong being able to get the pick on towards Haro, and I think it would have been fine if EDG had backed away without Mark being there. Mark being there means so much because now there is so much focus being put in the left side of the play. Changhong can dive deeply onto the right side of the play. Yeah, SinoDragons are just cleaning out in these team fights.
Take the tower off of that as well. Turret plating has fallen, 30 seconds remaining until that happens, and now SinoDragons are having an amazing early game once again after a little bit of a delay.
That's the thing, because the last 2 games, they were fine in minute 1. They had great lanes, they were able to come out and just kind of snowball, even though there were certain areas in game 1 they were being stalled, but they were able to find that team fight. This was a game where they were legitimately behind. EDG had the kills on the bottom side of the map, were doing quite well in mid, But then SinoDragon's made plays to come back into this one. This is them purely outplaying EDG in this series.
Now SinoDragon's sitting at 5-1-1 on their AD carry. He's got the E evolve at this point, sitting towards the Q if he doesn't have it already, since he does have the Storm Razors. And now the Mountain Drake, second of the game, going over to SinoDragon. So that is a lot of objective taking potential in their pocket now.
And at this point, Changhong should just sit pretty in the side lane. He was trying to be out in the map as much as possible, simply because they needed him to be able to get that flank play in the bottom lane, so he was necessary there, got an extra, pull from iBoy. And then in the recent play, got the kill on towards Haro. He's been amazing so far. And now he can just go in the side lane and start split pushing. That's all he really needs to do. You already see Mark and GALA taking this bottom lane turret. At this point, side lanes, SinoDragons can take them.
And this is what's so impressive about SinoDragons. We talked about GALA being a great AD carry, not #1. I'd argue that pretty much every player on this team is incredibly talented. And no, they may not be the literal best players in the LPL, but as a unit, every single one of them has shown the potential to carry, has shown the potential to pop off, and this series is a perfect demonstration.
A lot of people looked at this team and said that they had a ceiling and that they were just great, unity. They've been together in the LDL, they've always had that synergy, and so coming into the split, they came in strong. Or at least like for what a new team would usually come into the league with. But then being able to continue that, like the story of how Twila was able to take down RNG off his Jace and Corki game was exceptional. GALA also having his moments as well. Like across the board, you're right. They're starting to grow into something. It's going to be tough for them to make this run right from the start in round 1 to the quarterfinal, the semifinal. I mean, we're already saying that EDG still has a chance to come back, but it's just insane to be able to say this going up against the oldest team.
Right. The fact that we're able to say, hey, these guys are really good if they get when they get to the quarterfinals, and we can say that without laughing.
We'll have to see, though. EDG is a creative team when it comes down to it. And they're already trying to set up a pick on towards the Swain. Let's go.
Xiaopeng's here on the top side of the map, though. Changhong has the ultimate available. He's going to pop it for the time being, but he is 1 versus 3 at the moment. No teleport available from anyone else, but look, he's just doing it. He's fine with it. Meiko gets chunked so heavily. Xiaopeng's here for the backup as well, but he's not needed. Changhong, solo, 1v3, wins out.
He doesn't even have full soul fragments, too. That just goes to show how much damage he has and how far behind Ray is right now. In the specific matchups, yes, he's behind. He has a black cleaver, no tankiness, so who's the true carry on the side, true tank on the side of EDG? EDG cannot tank a damn thing. And the fact that they're behind right now, that means they're at the beck and call of SinoDragon's pressure.
And they are putting out so much of it here, currently focused around the middle lane. This mid lane outer tower is under massive threat at this point. Should be a pretty free pickup here. The chain not going to be able to finish its duration there. And now SinoDragons have picked up the middle tower. So no outer towers remaining here for EDG. Next Drake not up yet, but Raz, it's worth noting, that's the 3rd mountain.
Yeah. And I mean, what do you do with those? You have a Kaisa, you have a Jace. I mean, right now, SinoDragons have everything available for that 20-minute mark when they can go straight towards Baron buff. But right now, with how much pressure they have in the mid lane, and a pretty damn good poke composition, you keep mid and you keep looking for picks on towards EDG. Wow.
Wow. All right.
Yeah, let's go.
iBoy half health. And that's just a free tower, just like that. Dark Binding will land onto Changhong, but there is no way that they can follow up without putting themselves in danger. So SinoDragons will make it out of there with another inner 5 towers to their name at this point, and 6,000 gold up at just the 18-minute mark.
They just have no non-committal ways to get in. Olaf has to fully face plant if he wants to be able to get a fight going for himself. And if you're saying, well, Meiko has his Dark Binding, sure. But the person's just going to sit there, though. Who's going to be the one that takes the best out of the pick? You would say perhaps LeBlanc. But we saw, when they were sieging up onto towards the mid lane, how much time LeBlanc had to actually use the chain, get the damage off before she had to dip out. She didn't have much time before SinoDragons had focus on towards her. So what I'm currently seeing right now is, Twila looking for picks off his Shock Blast. And then you're looking towards Changhong, who's always in the front line with his team. And if he sees an opportunity, boy, he's going to be pulling him in. So it's a difficult one for EDG to swallow. I do not see a way for them to come in unless if SinoDragon makes that crucial mistake.
So far, though, they're looking so incredibly strong as a unit. 30 seconds remaining until the Mountain Drake is up, a minute until the Baron. Question is which one they're going to go for, but I don't feel like either option is bad.
Yeah, they can choose whatever they want. I think the worst situation for SinoDragons is either, of course, to misexecute and lose it to team fight. That's fine. But also just trade. They don't want to trade objectives with EDG. I think giving the EDG a dragon for Baron is obviously the best call you can make, but the concern is that they get stalled out by LeBlanc hitting in and out of the walls, or Sivir pushing out mid lane wave. That if they go towards the Baron buff and get pushed out, and the dragon gets taken away from EDG, then EDG can respond on the Baron as well. So what they're trying to do is saying, okay, we're just taking everything off the map for you. You have no ways to trade against us.
They know exactly what they need to do this game. Their macro, they haven't hit the late game, so that we don't have to worry about them not knowing what to do at this point. It's not even 20 minutes in. They've got triple mountain at this point, 6K gold lead still in their pocket. Just absolutely dominant here.
What I need to see right now from SinoDragons is for Rek'Sai to go back to base and pick himself up a stopwatch. Because if you're just looking at the inventory slots there for SinoDragons, that is 1, 2, 3 stopwatches right now from their side. Swain can jump in, stopwatch for himself, and the entire bottom lane, Mark and GALA can do the same for themselves right now. Remember, Dematerializer got nerfed. So not a lot of tanks actually want to go up and pick that up anymore. And so you're getting to see more stopwatch supports come out. And so that's hard now if you held on to that beginning of the game, get into this stage, and now have to deal with that.
GALA going to clear out the vision around the Baron pit. This is still an option for SinoDragons. And I would like to see the stopwatch as well for Xiaopeng for a slightly different reason. It only works once. But if I trust anyone to make the perfect use of stopwatches in a team fight that's going to decide a game, I think SinoDragons is a pretty safe bet.
He has a lot of ways to be able to dip and duck out of damage. So not even just the stopwatch, but the ultimate as well. So if he's ever dealing with a lot of pressure, specifically from LeBlanc, he can actually just kind of mess up a lot of LeBlanc's trading patterns, getting in and out. So there are a lot of possibilities. And SinoDragons, they don't want to allow them to come into fruition for EDG to find their way back into the game.
That in mind, though, Raz, SinoDragons, how at this point do they make sure that their lead doesn't disintegrate? That EDG, oh, I guess like that, looking for a pick onto Haro, forcing his flash. That's a good start.
Yeah, game 2, they found a fat man and the Gragas sitting around in the jungle, and they took him out. They're trying to do the same thing to Haro, and oh my god, they keep finding new people.
That damage is disgusting. The Duskblade and the Ghostblade, both of them online for Twila at this point. He just does massive damage, and Changhong has the fully stacked Rod of Ages as well.
What I'm seeing here is SinoDragons having so much pressure towards the Baron buff, and they're smart enough to not just go for it, to just start it. Look at their composition right now. They can't tank it very easily. Xiaopeng would actually lose a lot of his own AP to it, so they're forcing EDG to respect their damage on Twila and the pressure that, of course, the support would have there. So Mark and Twila are playing those guards, allowing them to take it with the greatest of ease. There we go. That's just smart.
And EDG, no contest in sight. So SinoDragons pick up the Baron buff for themselves. They got 3 minutes to work with that. The Leandri's going down onto Changhong. He has so much damage at this point.
I mean, when we have a discussion about the smartest teams in the LPL, or at least the best support staff for the squads, for me, SinoDragons feel like they have a lot of unsung heroes in their team. Not about the people who are currently on the Rift, but Coach Bai, Coach Saru, the people who have really instilled a lot of confidence in them when it comes to drafting and allowing Xiaopeng's strength to really come into fruition. Talking about a carry jungler coming in here, picking the Nidalee, Kindred a lot of the times, you would have to have a lot of confidence that not only can you round out the composition with a strong top side, but also on top of that, knowing that the team is consistent enough, disciplined enough that when things don't fall, when they fall awry, that they'll be completely useless at a game. Because it is risky. But what you're seeing right now is SinoDragons are making all of the right steps to be able to nail it down. And EDG, they're the ones suffering.
At this point, there's not a whole lot as they do while SDG march forward. That's another inner tower gone at this point.
So Ray is building straight in towards the attack speed round. He has the recurve bow, and he's trying to find himself split pushing. Okay.
Oh, they might be able to find Changhong. There's the stopwatch. He's still alive for now. The flash away over the wall. He's going to back. Oh, no. Scout goes in. He's able to get the assassination. This will slow down the push of SinoDragons significantly. 40 seconds until Changhong is back, but can they get the tower before that happens? Doesn't look like it as the heal comes out.
And Xiaopeng is still heading towards the mid lane, so even with Changhong lost, they know they can still get a lot of good stuff done with the minion waves coming through.
This is so ballsy from SinoDragons. If they misplay here, they lose all the tempo that they've been building up for the past 20 minutes. So they need to play this on a knife's edge.
Well, that turn went down. That just means that SinoDragons now can just start to peel back, go back off now. Changhong has teleport, to be fair, so he can still join them up when this mid lane dive if it ends up happening.
Okay,
Wow.
you know what's gonna happen now.
That's a lot of damage from Twila. The Glacial Fissure under the tower. Twila picks off Haro. The tower's down, so that's time to go in for GALA. The stopwatch will keep him alive for now after Killer Instinct, but he gets taken down. The shutdown from EDG.
Wow.
Is this the turn they were looking for? It looks like it might just be, and SinoDragons are forced away, but how far can they get before EDG take them out? Changhong still tanking away in the front lines. Pops the ultimate. He might be able to stay alive through all of this, but that's a lot of damage from Scout. They find Scout, but Ray with a beautiful 3-man ultimate isn't enough. It's enough to finally take down Changhong, but he falls as well. The double kill for Twila. But now iBoy flashes into the fray and will take out Twila and soon to be Mark. EDG keep themselves in the game, if only for a little longer.
Great use of teleport, finding himself right back into the fight. This game is getting down to the line. EDG are doing what they can to be relevant. SinoDragons make that one crucial mistake, diving straight in, just as Changhong was teleporting through. And of course, GALA was the first victim throughout all of it. Dives right in. Of course, he had the confidence of saying, I'll stop watch and my team will surround me. But at that time, if you're looking straight at Scout, Scout had his eyes on him at the very beginning. So that for me is going to be a real nice replay to watch back, because if you, especially if you're a YouTube viewer, you don't have to wait for us. But nah, we already at it. So take a look at this here, because SinoDragons already recognized teleports coming through. And take a look at the damage that they had on Meiko. So they were just going to be easily able to dive through. This is all SinoDragons, but being able to dive this far forward is too much, knowing that you had LeBlanc to be able to come in and finish you off. So with a lot of people essentially coming in like dominoes, trying to help out one person and now putting themselves into the fray, Changhong teleports in. He's like, wait, I guess you guys are already dead. And at this point and forward, EDG with the teleport, that was a deep teleport in there. Yeah, that was the deepest teleport I've seen from an AD carry, but he had no wards, I suppose. That's kind of crazy. And finally, when he made himself known, got in right in behind them, got the extra kill. So a lot of great kill gold on towards the Sivir now.
And you're seeing what can happen when the Sivir reaches the late game. iBoy, despite the rest of his team falling down so significantly, has not been shut down much at all this game. He's 4-0-4 with 266 CS, sitting on 3 items.
Yeah, just finished off his rapid fire cannon with that kill. So now you have yourself your rapid fire cannon, 3 items with the Ardent sensor there to help you out. You have a strong AD carry. Now, I've seen EDG come back when they had 3 inhibitors down. That was up against Newbie in the past. That was a fun one. Not fun for Newbie. But so they've done it in the past. This time around, SinoDragons are actually just playing so cleanly before that point happened that I have faith that they'll end up completing this game anyways. We'll just have to see, because right now, iBoy Scout, they're doing their hardest to find their way back into this series.
Question is how they can keep their pressure. The top lane wave is not pushing in their favor just yet. And it looks like Scout is going to go and try and take care of that by himself.
So to go back to my initial point before the team fight even started, going recurve bow into Blade of the Rune King, that's fine if you have the ability to be on a side lane to push out. But that's just not the case here. You don't have that benefit if you're Ray. Going towards like a more tankier option here would be far better for your squad. You have a lot of mixed damage that you're dealing with, but as long as you can build up that HP, if you're looking across the side of EDG, they don't have that for themselves. So being the one that can jump in into Mega Gnar, get the 3-man slam, and stay in the fight a little bit longer, that's great. So that's what I would love to see out of him, but with the Blade of the Rune King, he dies way too quickly.
They're basically tankless on the side of EDG, and that's going to be all the better for SDG, especially Changhong, who himself has so much health and so much damage on the back of it. The SinoDragons will get the E there, but forces the Ragnarok. Scout goes in, but not able to find the assassination just yet, and that should force away the fight.
Yeah, instant damage on towards Haro. Now, he doesn't have to go back. You can already see the Raptor camp just sitting there, going to heal him right up. But okay, Twila and Mark are not going to be able to find him there. Especially since EDG were actually looping around just in case if they went on top of him. So he can stay on the map a little bit longer. But this is hard. They can't deal with the Jace Shock Blast.
SinoDragon are pressuring around the objective as best again. GALA goes so deep, but now he's going to turn onto Ray. Killer Instinct not going to find much.
They got the Mega Gnar off of Ray. Now they have a great window where they can move towards the Baron buff if they can wait for the Mega Gnar to go off. Remember, exhausted once it goes down, so he can't build it up, losing a lot of team fight prowess. So they're on to the pit.
I think they should have waited a little bit longer.
Nah, they're good.
All right, he's going to fall back out, and that's the free Baron secure for them. Nobody going to engage just yet because EDG know if they lose a member and the Baron, they lose the game.
So Haro was the one, of course, the one with Smite, but went up top side to be able to clear the wave. So even if EDG without Haro went in to pick the fight, remember, Meganar was about to fall off, so you don't even have any CC to follow up on. So SinoDragons picked the smartest time possible to try and just finish out that Baron.
Now, if you're SinoDragons, you have 3 minutes sitting on that Baron buff. You have 2 open inhibitors and 1 inhibitor tower remaining in the bottom lane to take down. Where do you put your focus?
You just put them all straight to the mid lane. You know, ARAM. Try and go right for the inhibitor mid lane, go to the inhibitor top lane, and then but have someone pushing out the bottom lane. Changhong's already doing that for you. So it's going to be up to EDG to try to find a way to upset that. That's all going to be on to Ray. If the binding comes down, that makes it easier. You can try and poke on towards anyone that gets bound. Otherwise, Ray has to be able to, use his flash to get into the backline, but once again, already off on Meganar, so he's not going to have the timing.
SDG just got to wait up the last 5 seconds. Then they'll have pressure once again onto the inhibitor. Scout dodging away from the shock blast. Now GALA pounding away at that inhibitor. 3/4 health remaining. Still keeping up the pressure. Baron buff on all 5 members in both the mid and bottom lane. They're applying as much pressure as they can. Mid lane inhibitors down.
No, Haro can't do anything. They're going to lose both objectives at the same time. Now SinoDragons can actually just move all the way up to the next inhibitor, and there's nothing EDG can do about it.
They have a triple inhib here. Victory is all but assured. They'll be able to get the double, but at the bottom lane is where EDG are making their last stand. The poke down onto Meiko chunks him down to half. But that inhibitor is under threat from 2 Baroned up cannon minions and a very, very large Swain.
Yeah, you got to use the cannon minions. Hope he doesn't die. That's a lot to go in.
That is a lot on the scalp. GALA once again dives in so deep, but this time he's not going to get punished for it. The 3rd inhibitor falls down as the fight begins. SinoDragons dive in. They pick off 2, make that 3. They're chasing down 3 members remaining for EDG. The first Nexus tower falls. The second falls as well. And SinoDragons may well have done it. The 3-0 in their first split of the LPL, making their way into quarterfinals against EDG.
And take a look at them. You have to be ecstatic after that one. You take down EDG and you send waves across the league. You tell the next opponent, watch out. TOP, man, you have to watch. TOP was looking at EDG. Remember, TOP was the one that got manhandled by EDG not just a week or so ago. And now SinoDragons were able to take down EDG with the greatest of ease. So these teams are growing. And SinoDragons look like a team you have to fear straight from each individual player. Because you saw teamwork, that's true. But what I got to see was Twila come out with a Jace pick and actually take so much control over Scout there. But then you saw Xiaopeng consistently, every game, have those leads over the enemy jungler. Haro and Clearlove have 2 levels above on Clearlove as well. You just start to see these carries start to take over, and it's on SinoDragons' end.
Back to the team play as well. Any team that's able to get so far ahead and so cleanly to the point where you can lose that massive fight that they did near the inhibitor and still come back and not lose a significant amount of pressure, that shows an insane cleanliness to their play in the earlier stages of the game.
And remember, the first few games, you take the first 2 games and say, you know what, EDG, if they had drafted a little bit better, then SinoDragons wouldn't be rolling off with their early game leads on both Xiaopeng and Twila. And that's fair. That's a fair point to make. But game 3, that had been cleared out. And a lot of the Dragon focus that came through was being traded well by EDG. But man, you just take a look at that. You say cleanliness, and that's true. Because what you saw from the team was, even though I would say around 8 minutes in, EDG had firm control, SinoDragons took that right back with Changhong's teleport in the bottom lane, Rek'Sai going right back mid and being able to pick up the kill for Twila. And suddenly, okay, well, every lane has been sent back a bit. So SinoDragons have been showing us not only the creative early on, but when they lose control, they're also just adaptive to find those leads back again.
And I think the coolest thing here is that this series showed an evolution for SinoDragons. Game number 1, you could argue that the problem was that EDG got baited in the draft. Okay, they'll fix it in game number 2. Game number 2, draft is pretty standard, play is pretty standard there from SinoDragons. It's like, okay, maybe the draft just didn't have enough mid priority. They let Xiaopeng do his thing. Let's stop that. Game number 3, they stop Xiaopeng. they don't stop the victory.
So the thing about game number 3, even still, they didn't have mid lane priority. But that's something you look at. But at least EDG got a lot out of it in the bottom side of the map and top lane too. Top lane was an interesting one. You look at the Gnar pick and you say, okay, they're not playing towards Ray this game. He actually gotten punished so much in the first 2 games that they gave him a much safer pick in the Gnar. This time around, they looked towards pushing into the mid lane, so the LeBlanc was never a factor. And then they said, well, we can't do anything bottom lane because not only are they super safe with the Morgana and Sivir spell shield, but they're consistently shoving, and now Haro could play to that lane. But Xiaopeng had actually not only got the bottom lane vision in the early first rotation and is clear, but he went top lane and he looked to take pressure on towards Ray. So the whole strategy of putting Ray behind, keeping Scout behind, and then always having an eye on towards where Clearlove and Haro is had remained throughout all 3 games. And that made it so impossible for EDG to even come into these team fights on even footing. And I'm talking about like iBoy and Meiko having those iconic moments in team fights. They didn't get any of that because they were stopped early, and I think SinoDragons have a remarkable way to play out those games just based off of, once again, the carried jungle difference.
SinoDragon just were generally just so impressive, especially in game number 3, because this was the game where I thought SinoDragons were going to falter. This was when I thought, okay, it's going to 5 games, it's going to be a problem. But it turned out after that early game, SinoDragons were able to recover so absolutely beautifully around the time when that Herald was a point of contention.
So I want to see that right back again, because one thing that we get in the LPL is, all-in fights here. But this was EDG starting out in the Rift Herald, getting caught out, Haro moving up toward, away from his own team, and then take a look at Mark. Mark finds the way to get right into the back line, knock up on towards Scout, and also just slows the rest of them. So they're able to not only get the kill on towards Ray, who is fleeing down under, but also the target they had knocked up and had been able to get, pulled in with Swain's passive. So it was a really well played out team fight from Mark, and we saw that consistently across the series, where Mark was able to get flank engages on his team fights. He was very creative. Changhong was relentless on a lot of his pursuits when he had tanks. In game 2 that was the case, but then you also saw the added flexibility that it wasn't about the tanks that Changhong was bringing. It was about the carries that he had in game 1 off his Cassiopeia, and in game 3 that he was able to showcase his Swain. So Changhong, like, in the preseason, I came into this one saying that he was a potential for a rookie of the split. Now, I don't even know, because every one of those guys on this team are hunting for it as well. And 369, who they will be going up against in the coming days, in 2 days from now, that's going to be a nice matchup to see as well.
It's so crazy because me personally, I didn't feel like any of these players were going to blow my mind in terms of rookies. I was looking more towards 369 and being like, dude, that guy's crazy. And BLG, Meteor as well, was playing so incredibly. I was like, okay, these guys are really standout players. Whereas SinoDragons, for me, kind of slipped under the radar. I was like, yeah, Changhong's all right. The Scion, I guess, is pretty effective. I like Xiaopeng. He plays Nidalee. That's cool. But then GALA started absolutely popping off, and I started paying closer attention to SinoDragons, and they just started impressing me more and more.
I think for me, SinoDragons, and it comes across like the amount of games that they played in the LPL Spring Split, you saw, I say there was consistency in the play style that they had showed us, but there was not a consistency at the level that they were playing. Because even though they were taking up wins against one of the top teams in the league with the TOP victory that they had, that shocked RNG as well, they were losing to teams that were underneath them that I was saying, well, where are SinoDragons really? Where can we place them when they go up against LGD and like OMG, and they were struggling in those instances, but they can take down the best of them very well. So you got to see technically where their ceiling was. But in a pressure situation, how are they going to be going up against EDG? And you already got to see it. So really, hands off to, I think hats off to SinoDragons in the series. And I think going into the next one, the focus to me now goes on towards Twila. Because we've been talking about 2v2 a lot, how there was never a situation where Scout was able to get push in mid lane and be able to help out his adjacent lanes and more importantly his jungle. That's not going to be the situation when they go up against Knight. Knight and XX, they actually so much they prioritize their solo laners so much more, and so it's going to be SinoDragons and TOP going head to head. And remember, SinoDragons took down TOP in the regular season with that same strategy, so these teams are fairly similar in the way they come across and which lanes they value. So it's going to be a lot more contentious.
And that's the question I want to delve into a little bit more, is really like, how far can this team go? Because this series, they played so much better than we've seen them play before. I think that's fair to say, because I mean, a 3-0 against EDG, already that should say enough, but the level of play that they demonstrated, like you said, they were able to establish a lead early and hold on to it throughout the entire game. That's really impressive, especially from a newer game. Yes, the late game was a little bit shaky, but they kept it clean enough that the general trend was just consistently upward. In game number 2, they showed that they don't need a different kind of tricky strategy. Don't need the different composition there. They kept that going. Game number 3, they showed that they can play from behind and establish it back into a lead. What weaknesses are remaining? What can TOP do to try and abuse this less experienced team?
I mean, experience, I think we should kind of throw that into the wind, especially since I think that they're coming in fairly confident. I think if we're just talking about, where do you actually look to puncture? I think Twila said it best in the video when he was coming in and just talking about himself. Because he said, hey, you know what, I'm Hampson, and I'm pulling out the positives first. But he also mentioned that statistically, he calls himself the weakest. Now, I think he's not the weakest. There are a lot of mid laners that take that championship, that award. I think Twila he plays for the team, and a lot of times there are instances where he actually makes mistakes off of like the quirky pickups that he had. Even in the Zillion games where he's willing to actually concede a lot, but even still actually pushes a little bit too much forward at times. And they misjudge 2v2s in the regular season. I'm just talking about in the past, this has been a thing that's been happening, and teams that's gone into them that have strong 2v2 mid lane can actually take advantage of that and stop them there. I think TOP can do that a little bit more easily. I'm surprised that EDG weren't able to, and that they had a strategy to give their bottom lane priority and push, but not a way for the jungle to actually bridge that mid lane into the bottom lane. So I say draft, but I think even if they had the right draft, as you had mentioned, then obviously the play, they didn't recognize that Changhong was going for the bottom lane play. Ray was just generally invisible is what happened here.
I do feel like EDG kind of faltered here in a way we haven't seen them before this split. It was a little bit reminiscent of the level of play at the beginning of the split before they had that renaissance with the drafting and stuff, because when you go from having a composition earlier to the mid-late side of the split where we're like, oh man, that's really creative, to one where we're like, what are you trying to accomplish with this, and why are you not shoring up this and this weakness? It paints an odd picture for EDG, because I genuinely feel like they still showed that they were a huge contender team, but losing 3-0 to SinoDragons does raise some interesting questions.
Yeah, I mean, the interesting questions are, now it seems like they're bringing in Haro a lot more frequently. Well, what is the right jungle mix for you? Where is the communication errors coming through? Because I still came into that series saying that ClearLove actually was the better showing of the two. And people would probably be looking at me and say, well, what are you talking about? ClearLove was 2 levels down. But any jungler would just like tear their hair out and say, well, what are you talking about? Like, you had 2 lanes that were pushing into you. Of course he's going to die in that situation. Or of course he's going to be pushed out. Because even if he doesn't go for the red buff push, and what he was trying to do, he was taking the safe route too. He was going through the banana bush and saying, can I peek in there? It's like, is my red buff in there? But as he was going through, he sees the Nidalee in the bush. And then that's where everything goes down the drain. So I would say that ClearLove still looks better out of the two. But in the whole series, I think drafting and focus, you're right, around their solo laners faltered. And so there was never a way for iBoy to come in.
Now, speaking of AD carries, we got our MVP for that third game. I'm not too terribly surprised, because it is going to be GALA as the MVP. Absolutely monstrous performance, not just in that last game, but the series as a whole.
I think what they're trying to do is share the wealth on these MVPs. Because I think Game 2, I would have given it to Xiaopeng. And then Game 3, you know what? I would have given that one to Mark. Or this one I actually would have given it to Changhong. I think Changhong, once again, was the reason for them coming back into it, and then a lot of the team fights was able to get some crucial picks. But either way, what we saw from GALA in this game was essentially him being able to find opportunities to just jump right in. And so recognizing timings when you can just dive straight through and you have the faith of your team to follow up, that is a showcasing of an AD carry with potential. Someone who has the skill. I think GALA's got it. And I think going into the next series when he has to go up against Loken is a good call for him. I think that's going to be a good matchup for him. And it's going to be a good call for SinoDragon to start to focus on that one. Because remember, teams that go up against TOP tend to focus on what, the lane with the least amount of resources there is given to them. That's Loken and Ben. Loken right now, yeah, he is the MVP leader. No. KDA leader. He is the KDA leader currently alongside number 2, which is Knight. So they get a lot of KDA over there, and it's a lot of times when they end up getting a lot of leads, then it turns into just a brawl. Them trying to get as many fights around the bottom side of the map as possible. And I think SinoDragon is the team that's going to match them on that one. So 100% in 2 days when you see that matchup, you're going to be seeing a lot of skirmishes across the board. You're seeing Loken get challenged early on, which we don't get to see a lot of the times when it's GALA getting early gold there. I would love to see the new strategy coming in from SinoDragons.
Yeah, because I think this is a fun juxtaposition in terms of strategies here, because I feel like TOP play a lot more towards the split style, where it's just like, okay, 369 and Knight are absolutely massive. We don't have to give resources to Loken. He'll survive somehow. We trust him. Good luck, buddy. And they just leave him there. And then you focus on Knight. You focus on the mid lane 2v2. You focus on 369, who's that incredible top laner. And then you just go for it versus SinoDragons, who want to go for the team fight.
Yeah, so now I just want to see what the bracket is looking forward. Because currently, if I'm just talking about the individual matchup, I can talk about that for the next 2 days, right? But we got to hold off. We got a lot of games to cover. And the next one's going to be JDG versus RNG tomorrow. Now, today was actually Uzi's birthday. So, thankfully, Uzi doesn't have to lose in his birthday, but he could have won in his birthday. He could have had that going for him. But he's going to be able to come forward in the next day, and I think going up against JDG, he has a lot to handle with them being able to take down that 3-1 victory over WE.
Yeah, that was shocking. I mean, both of our round of 8 games have been surprising so far. I mean, we didn't expect Jingdong to win.
Yeah.
Our predictions are just dead at this point.
It's over.
Honestly, I don't trust myself as much anymore, but that's okay. JDG took that one 3-1 today. SinoDragons with the 3-0, so that's going to be RNG versus JDG tomorrow, and then the following day is going to be SinoDragons versus TOP. So you're going to see JD versus RNG tomorrow for the first quarterfinals match.
Remember what Imp said coming into the last series, was that he's starting to feel confident about himself, like he can take on anybody. And me, when I heard that, I was like, I don't know about that one. Now, thankfully, I got to see that one after he took down Mystic in Game 1 in that solo kill. Because going into that series, Imp had actually faltered a lot. A lot of the times, remember, we mentioned the stat of him being the one who's received the most deaths in the bottom lane in 2v2 situations. And that's just something you look at and you say, okay, Lumao has a lot to work with, and Imp is not being able to take those victories in the 2v2. But man, he's been coming up strong. And the 2v2s have been considerably better. And if you're dealing with a lot of new synergies coming through, like Loken and Lumao finally getting it to work, what you now have was what you saw in the last series, was them legitimately strong-arming them in the 2v2, and then Lumao finding excellent engages on his fiddlesticks in the last one. So, JDG, you have to respect them now. Suddenly they've come in strong, and Flawless is zeroed in on the lane. So, there's a lot of focus on the team, is what I'm saying. And I think RNG, who've been faltering just recently, are going to have to deal with them.
Yeah, I mean, RNG just have been looking a little bit shaky, especially with the top lane instability. So that's the question I have going into that series. And, of course, we have TOP versus SDG. My brain did not let me recognize that SDG just took a 3-0.
Yeah, sometimes it happens like that, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes you just have to look at it and you're like, oh, there's some new thought coming through, right? The SinoDragons is a contender. So there's a lot of stuff you have to be able to see, and maybe now these teams can make the deep run. We expect the Team WE to make that run through RNG, to get through FPX, right? That's where the questions lied when we asked a lot of the analysts, or even myself. So for me, I think that JDG going up against RNG for certain. Zoom is going to be a major asset to them, knowing that there is that weakness in the top lane. I still don't know who's going to be playing top lane. Remember, Lemmy's coming out of inactivity. There's a possibility where Zatai can continue to play, and I would love to see Zatai continue to play. But there's also that chance that Amazing J has done well in scrims, and he's able to come back. But one thing is for certain, is that Zoom is always on top. And so I think that JDG coming into this, their solo lanes are strong, and they should be able to come in strong as well.
We're going to find out how that develops when we get into our matches tomorrow, JDG versus RNG. From us, thank you so much for coming out. It's an absolutely incredible series with the SinoDragon 3-0. We're going to see what the LPL playoffs have in store for us tomorrow.
Tears, they're falling like rain, spelling out your name.